The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over to the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. It's Tuesday. Got the ghost of Base Patrick Henry fixing the hair, getting all up for the show. How you doing, brother?
I'm great, man. Happy Memorial Day to everybody.
Yes. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I took the kids to the in-laws' house at the beach. And it was just pouring rain like all over Virginia. It was a lose-lose. It was like you stay home and it's pouring rain, or you go to the beach and it's pouring rain. We went to the beach a few times when it wasn't raining, but it was still like overcast and kind of cold. But yeah, it is what it is. So we got to get out to the country, which is always nice. It's a very, very rural part of the East Coast, a rare part of the East Coast. It's very rural. So, yeah, man, it was good. How was your weekend?
It was great, man. It was great. We did some, things yesterday. We had a barbecue with the neighbors yesterday. Had a bunch of our veteran buddies over there, so that was very cool hanging out with them. And then, I think we went out on Sunday, took the jet skis out, had a good time out there, and just relaxed, man. It was sat in a pool all day yesterday. Like I got out and my fingers were like literally like just like my whole hands looked like prunes, and I needed that, man. So
nice. Yeah. I got a really severe sunburn last week, and it felt good.
Yes,
it was a good kind of crispy. Yeah, it felt good.
All right, guys, before we get into the show, let's talk about some of our sponsors. Guys, have we checked out Badlands Shop lately? You might be surprised by what you've been missing, from thoughtful gifts and unique finds to everyday household essentials and personal care must-haves. There's truly something for everyone at the Badlands Shop. But here's what makes it different. Every single purchase that you make is so much more than just buying stuff. You're investing directly in the movement. You're empowering America First businesses, lifting up fellow Badlanders, and supporting the creators who are building this community with us. Thank you for being a part of this. Your support means everything. Head over now to badlandsmedia.tv/shop or click shop on the main menu at badlandsmedia.tv and discover your new favorite brands. Again, that's badlandsmedia.tv/shop. All right. And well, we're going to switch things up a little bit. Memorial Day is over. And so we are no longer hydrating our elbows, but let's get back to Madame Marjorie the Moistureless.
In a quiet town at where beards grow wild and lips dare to crack without permission, one woman has suffered.
Hi, I'm Margie, and I'm Jadriet's mother.
But the world would come to know her by another name, Madame Margie, the Moistureless.
Jay came home with a lip balm. It's called Soft Disclosure.
With one miraculous application, her power awakened.
Within one day, my lips were healed. It was miraculous.
But salvation came at a cost. For in the shadowed lands known only as Badlands,
You boys at Badlands are so handsome.
she saw potential.
You're covering up your beautiful faces.
And she made her demand.
Shave them all off,
Or face the consequences. Beard oil will not save you now.
and you'll look so much better.
This summer, moisturize wisely and guard your beard. Because Madame Margie, the Moistureless, is always watching.
All right. Softdisclosure.com. And yesterday at our at the barbecue, there was a bunch of people there, and we somehow like lotion came up, and I think it was sunscreen. Somebody was putting on sunscreen. I'm like, sunscreen's a lie, and they're like, oh, what do you use? And I was, telling them about some of the products out there, and the tallow came up, and they're like, oh, that's like this new thing everybody's doing. I was like, bro, tallow's been around since like the Native Americans, man. But yes, there are a lot of people out there now uncovering the majesticness of natural ingredients. So
yeah. Well, I would say probably longer than the Native Americans. I think ever since they've been sacrificing animals on altars, they've figured out that if you burn the fat, you get tallow.
Yeah, and you can use that for all sorts of moisturizing benefits. So smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. Eleanor 2000 left a Badlands boost yesterday. Thank you, Brian, for your service, and in honor of all those who died for our freedom, in memory each year of my grandfather, Lieutenant Vereen Bell, killed in the Battle of Leyte Gulf in 1944 in the Philippines. For the beautiful lives lost, thank you. And Eleanor, thank you for that boost, and fair winds and following seas to your grandfather. And
yes. Yeah. Thank you, Eleanor. Eleanor's great. We've met her at GART. She was in Coco. And yeah, she's a great supporter, and she's always in the chat. So shout out to Eleanor, Eleanor 2000. Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in world history.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, largest naval battle in history. I think like whatever 200,000. Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, over 200,000 naval personnel involved. Yeah, I mean it was a huge battle. We had 17 carriers if you include light carriers, plus 18 escort carriers. The Japanese had 4 carriers. Including light carriers. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. It was a big, and I actually did this for one of the Badlands news briefs. I went and looked up battles where there were actually like battleships versus battleships. There's only like 4 battles in the history of the naval warfare where like a battleship actually fought a battleship. It's crazy. But yeah, so Leyte Gulf, that was a big one. So shout out to Eleanor.
That's badass. That's badass. All right, so let's jump into the news. New York Post, Trump house owner dies after brutal attack outside Escondido home. This is a guy, he's kind of, famous for having a whole bunch of American flags and everything else outside of his home. He's a veteran, I believe. And a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, I think, he was assaulted by a guy, just unprovoked attack, just I guess doesn't like Trump or whatever, and he punched him in the face, started kicking him while he was on the ground, and then fled the property, his property, this guy's property, and they hospitalized him, put him in a coma to try, like he was in a coma, I guess, and I don't know if it was medically induced or whatever. I think it was, and he ended up dying to his injuries. He was 69 years old, Army veteran. And he was assaulted by a guy named Thomas Caleb Butler, 32-year-old from California. So just highlighting that story right there, because, the political violence, it's totally, all the Trump supporters that are the very violent ones out there. So.
Yeah, it's bad, man. That stuff's been totally normalized. And then it's also being like distorted, of course, like misattributed. And it's going to be used to censor free speech. It already is. That's already happened, of course. But yeah, it's bad. So thoughts and prayers to the victim there. That's terrible.
Yeah, I've seen on X, this viral video. It's being rehashed now of the guy, and you've probably seen it. The guy in the wheelchair. The black Navy vet in the wheelchair, and he gets shot by another man, like out in the public. I think he was in Virginia, actually, I think. But yeah, he gets shot. Like you see him in a wheelchair, and like a guy's apparently calling him a stolen valor, whatever the case might be. And you see the guy in the wheelchair pulls out a gun, and the other guy pulls out his gun and shoots him. And he ended up doing 3.5 years in jail, because I guess like he was the aggressor because he ripped the guy's patch off or something. I don't know. But the guy in the wheelchair pulled out an airsoft gun. And I mean, look, you don't know that it's an airsoft gun, and you never should. Like if somebody pulls out a gun and brandishes a firearm at you, you better assume that it's a real firearm. But so that guy gets convicted. He doesn't get the self-defense plea, but something I didn't know is the guy in the wheelchair. So this story took place, I think, in 2025. The guy in the wheelchair back in 2021 drove his van through a crowd of Trump supporters because he didn't like Trump, and got basically a slap on the wrist because, nobody got seriously injured in it. So he just got a slap on the wrist for it. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of craziness that's going on here. So.
Yeah, it's the radicalization of society, which is bad news bears. So yeah, clarify Leyte Golf. I just looked it up. 4 smaller engagements plus a small skirmishes. The last ever battle between 2 battleships. That's what it was. Okay. I remember that name stuck out. I was like, I remember that was that article that I wrote, or the take that I wrote for the news brief. The last time that 2 battleships ever fought one another on the seas.
Well, I mean, battleships pretty much went by the wayside after that, and they moved to destroyers and
battleships hit their apex in World War I, and then they started launching planes off of like the decks of ships at the end of World War I, and they figured out that we need to shift away from these. But that was also, we sank all their carriers, the Japanese, in that fight, and it crippled their navy, and their navy never recovered. So that was kind of Midway was the turning point, but Leyte Gulf, I think, was like the crippling of their navy.
They sorry, I saw something in the chat that also sparked me, but Trump's trying to rehash the battleships, right? That's part of his agenda here is to rebuild and make these great majestic battleships. I don't necessarily know where I stand on that. I think we're moving towards drone warfare, and I think building a $1 billion battleship to go fight against drones, I don't know, man. We'll see. But warfare as a whole is already in the process of changing dramatically.
It's an interesting discussion. It's a debate that I would love to see hashed out by like experts. I'm certainly not one, not even close. Right. But like the idea of 5,000 guys on a carrier is also outdated, because a hypersonic missile, you take them all out, right? And like you said, drone warfare, you don't really need fleet carriers anymore, because you're going to be launching drones. You could launch those from any kind of ship, I would imagine. And because hypersonic missiles kind of negate a fleet carrier, the weaponry that you could put on a battleship, which could be manned by far fewer sailors, probably could, take out any sort of threat at a very, very long range without the kind of munitions that you need now that are like explosive. That was one of the reasons battleships, I think, were a huge liability, is they had these huge armories, right? And if you hit the armory, the whole battleship exploded, right? So if you are going to like magnetic weaponry or lasers and that kind of stuff, you don't have the explosive munitions there on board, it's far less of a liability in terms of like getting hit.
It's a good point. Emerald Dragon in the chat says, I think Trump's new battleships are going to be for space and just capable and just capable of water travel. And
I think you're probably right about that. I wouldn't be surprised about that by that at all.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well. I'm all for the space battles. Let's get to the Star Wars, man. Let's just get it. All right, so let's jump into this story here, and this is actually 3 stories back to back, just headlines. They're kind of seeding the ideas here for who's going to run for president in 2028 for the Democrats. And obviously there's the usual contenders. Kamala Harris, she is getting all this flack because she actually put out like a decent Memorial Day message yesterday, and everybody's like, hey, you remember in 2021 when you said enjoy the long weekend? And she's getting absolutely destroyed over that. So a lot of people talking about that. A lot of people. Axios has 3 articles up here gearing up for the 2028 run. AOC takes more steps towards 2028 run for president, saying that she's now on this world tour, national tour, going out there and doing all these events and speaking. She's not calling it a tour, but they are. She was at the Ebenezer Church in Atlanta, and Warnock allowed her to speak at that. And it's like this big deal that they're trying to make. They're also talking about Elizabeth Warren, and it feels like they're just throwing things out there right now. Axios and, probably acting as the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, much like Stephen Colbert was on national TV, on nightly TV. They're just throwing out these feelers, and they're going to see which of these articles gets the most feedback, what type of, using AI and other things, what kind of metrics are they getting out of these articles to see who would be most likely, to head up the ticket. I still think all of them are going to be second to Newsom in 2028, but we haven't even gotten past 2026, and they're already throwing all this shit out there. It's kind of funny to see this.
It's depressing. I mean, people talking about like 2026 and 2028, and it's like, guys, we still need to drain the swamp. It would be so funny if everybody went through all these, like this performative ritual of anointing the next candidates, and then Trump just canceled the 2028 election. I think that would be so funny. And the further we go along in the story, and the more Trump does like his Hollywood Hulk Hogan heel turn, which he clearly has done, where he's like kind of playing he always kind of playing the villain in a lot of ways. It feels like it's like more so. A few years ago, I would have been like, he's not going to cancel an election. Chris was joking about that like a year or 2 ago. And now it kind of feels like he actually might, because he is kind of adopted that heel position. And it's been fantastic to watch.
So the whole concept of starting to lay this all out. I mean, again, we're not even full swing into the 2026 midterms. We don't know who all the candidates, the primaries aren't all finished up, and et cetera, et cetera. And they're already jumping out in front of the 2028. So we have in this country perpetual election cycles. And I think we've all seen it gradually moving to that point where, even as a congressman in 2 years, you win your election. And then immediately, as soon as you're sworn in, you've already begun to campaign for your next election.
Yeah.
Like that's the point where we've gotten at now. And when you're doing that, first off, it creates an endless supply of money because you have campaign funding coming in all times. You have a whole kind of quasi-private organization operating your campaign in the background, where they're just kind of, doing whatever the hell they want to do in the background outside of the scope of your official office. But more importantly, it deflects all attention away from any sort of election integrity, any election reform, because people that are involved in this process are not going to reform the said process that got them into the position that they're in the first place. So the perpetual, election cycle and bolstering this midterm with already, aspirations for president, it's like insane, man. Like, give it a rest.
Yeah. And that's something that I think that a lot of people don't appreciate that enough. The amount of money that's spent. I mean, I know people talk about like the money that's spent in politics and how much of a problem that is. I think that's kind of ubiquitous with the corruption issue, right? And draining the swamp. But when you consider that all of these people, they go and they'll serve like in an administration, whether it's the president or the governor or whatever. And then they'll go start a consultancy firm. I mean, Tucker Carlson's son, who's like 20 something, just started a consultancy firm in DC after leaving JD Vance's whatever staff. So he's going to get hired to like do this kind of stuff. Like people are going to pay him money to basically give advice or to connect them to people or whatever. Like that's what a consultancy does, right? Is like connecting people to like party to party. I don't mean political party. I just mean connecting to groups, brokering relationships, giving advice, doing polls, like all that kind of stuff. So when you lose an election, you actually still win because all of your friends and family that are like involved in the machine are getting paid millions of dollars, right? And it's like, we'll get them next time, don't worry. And then you actually benefit from losing an election because then you can use that to raise money and say, hey, look at what the other side's doing and how they're screwing everything up. Give us more money and we'll get them next time, we promise. That's the machine, and that's what nobody wants to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about, the exciting part of politics, which is like winning an election. But it's actually losing an election that's I think the preferred outcome, because then you can just grift even harder. It's really, really messed up, man.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely disgusting. And when a lot of these funds that are coming in aren't even organic, and this is the Act Blue Win Red expose and the Smurfing expose, and a lot of this is not organic. And so people generally, I think, are kind of like worn out on elections. Like we're just dried out. Like nobody wants to get the text messages. Nobody wants to, hey, help me. It's Ted Cruz. I'm your best friend and I want you to come have lunch with me. Like that kind of shit. We're all just sick of it. We're so sick of it. But they have to keep out the appearance that people aren't sick of this. And there's actually people out there that respond to these and are like, oh yeah, let me give you $5. It's all fake. It's all fake.
Yeah. When you get a text message like that, understand something. You've given your phone number to something in your life. Doesn't matter. You go to buy a car, you sign up for an email, like whatever it is. You've given your phone number to somebody. They've sold your phone number to groups of people over and over and over and over and over again. Somebody's paid money for a list of phone numbers, and then somebody else has written out those text messages that are mass sent. Every time you receive a text message, that's money spent. Somebody spent money to send out those mass text messages, and that's money that you're giving to the campaigns. So you're giving even giving the money to the Trump campaign, they're probably distributing that money to other people that they're endorsing, right? So every time you give money to the campaigns, no matter whose campaign it is, that money is being spent on things like those annoying text messages that you're getting. So it's like the more you participate, the more you're just fueling and perpetuating the annoying behavior that you probably hate.
Yep. And all of this is also perpetuated by the media. You've got these podcasts now. I was listening yesterday in the background, just like sometimes I just listen to random shows to see like what they're talking about. And man, if you're listening to a podcast and their like whole talking point, their whole spiel is Republicans versus Democrats, turn that shit off. Turn that off like instantly and realize that that's just a propaganda machine for whichever party, they're backing up, they're supporting. They're the evil ones. They're the best ones. Turn that shit off.
Don't you remember, like, that's what Trump ran on in 2015, 2016. Yes. He was like, the Republicans' entire brand is losing. He's like, that's what they're good at. And they like it. He's like, I will teach these people how to win. He's like, the Republicans have forgotten how to win. I will show them. And that was one of the reasons they hated them, because they were like, dude, we don't want to win. We want to lose. So then we can bitch and complain about it and get, earnest patriots to give us their money so we can grift off of them.
Yep. Let's cover this and then we'll touch on that point right there. Ghost Axios. So at the same time that Axios is throwing out those feelers for AOC, Elizabeth Warren, who knows else, they're putting out this piece right here this morning, behind the curtain. Trump's irreversible choices. And just to highlight the choices, I don't need to read this crap. It says every president tests their limits. Trump tests them faster than anyone, often with little thought about the consequences. His advisors tell us only courts or markets or his quest for good press can rein him in. Now, here's the list of things, and a lot of this is pure propaganda. He sent ICE into American cities underprepared and with a shifting mandate, cheering the made-for-TV chest thumping, even as agents jailed and deported some U.S. citizens. Now, just to quickly fact-check that, the U.S. citizens that were deported voluntarily left with their loved ones that were here illegally that were deported. And if you go and like actually search for a fact check on this, the first person that they point to is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. the Maryland dad that was deported for trafficking people from Missouri to Maryland and on many other occasions. But his kids, I guess, left with him voluntarily. They chose to go with him. So it's not like Trump is saying, hey, you're a U.S. citizen, get GTFO. So also, the whole ICE was underprepared. That is completely a fake narrative that was put out there. ICE did their job because you had the Renee Goods and the Alex Petty's or Pretty, whatever his name was, because you had those people, and the conflict that arose with them, and, the mass hysteria created by the Singam networks out there in response to those events. Doesn't mean that ICE was unprepared. It means that they may have won a slight narrative battle in portraying them as unprepared. Clearly not the case, but if you want to comment on that, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep going.
No, keep going.
He unleashed the Justice Department against critics with indictments so thin that grand juries and Republican-appointed judges tossed some of them, while he rewarded supporters who claimed they were targets of government weaponization. We'll hit the weaponization in the next article, but the Republican-appointed judges tossing them, they tossed the DAs. They are the U.S. attorneys. Because the Senate won't do their job and confirm. Then this is talking about what's her name, Halligan, and who was the other one that they tossed? I can't remember. It was what's her name? The one in New Jersey that was part of his legal team, the pretty one. What was her name?
Alina Habba.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they tossed these people because the Senate's not doing their job. Yeah. It wasn't anything. It wasn't because the indictments were too thin, but
yeah. And see, this is where I get even more frustrated, because I see people say, well, if you're not voting, then don't bitch. I vote. I vote in all the elections, but guess what? The elections are stolen. Okay. But even if they weren't stolen, let's just assume the elections are all 100% real. Let's assume that Trump actually lost the 2020 election because Joe Biden got 81 million real lawful American votes. What exactly has the Republican Party done for you lately? Because they haven't done a damn thing to support President Trump, codify any of his actions, codify his tariffs, codify or even put his appointments into place. They won't even do that. And yet, if we don't get these people reelected in November, somehow our republic is going to collapse, and that the whole thing is going to come to a screeching halt. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? These people already aren't doing their job, and they are in full control of the Congress right now as we speak, and they aren't doing anything about it. But oh my gosh, they might lose control of Congress in November. What then? Well, then the other team will just run with the football for a little bit until it's the other team's turn to take possession, and round we go until Trump is out of office, and then we're right back to where we were 10 years ago. It's maddening. It's maddening to talk about this in circles.
He let friends and family profit from the presidency. No, he told you what his agenda was, and people invested in it. I invested in stuff that was in his agenda, and guess what? Profited off of it. That's all it is. Now, that's rich coming from Axios, who I don't know if they have or haven't, but when you look at, the Pelosi's of the Congress, who, have 800% increases in their portfolios. But yes, sure, let's go after Trump's family. He leveled haphazard, unpredictable tariffs on friends and adversaries alike, ignoring Congress, the courts, and the Constitution in doing so. No, he equally applied tariffs, global tariffs, equally to allies and adversaries alike. He operated within the scope of law that Congress gave him back in the 70s, and the courts have just, I don't know, the courts refer to Gorsuch's, his opinion in the overturning of the tariff rule. Basically, it's an opinion, but it reads like we're a bunch of hypocrites. We are a bunch of hypocrites. Major policies, doctrine, etc. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I saw Trump comment last week saying, "Yeah, it looks like we are going to have to pay back this $150 billion in tariffs." And I still don't think that MAGA, the electorate, understands what the implication is here. The implication is not just that you're not going to collect tariff revenue, or that you're you're gonna have to pay this back with taxpayer dollars. By the way, you already had your prices inflated, right? Inflated, quote unquote. So you had to pay more for the products that you're getting from China, and now you have to give money back to the corporations who shipped them in, who imported them, because they're suing the government because of it. So you got banged twice on that. What this really means, though, is that you're not going to onshore the manufacturing that Trump ran on. All of that's not going to happen, which means you're not getting a golden age. Your golden age is now being shut down by who? The Republican Party. The Republican Party is shutting down the golden age because if there are no tariffs, then there's no incentive for the corporations to onshore their manufacturing, which means you are not getting a real economy back. Your economy is going to continue to run on fiat speculation of, a financial, based economy, a finance-based economy, a speculation-based economy, instead of a economy where we actually make things. So there's so much more at stake here than just like the Republican Party tariffs, like all that. This is, do you want a golden age or do you not want a golden age?
We were told for the last year and a half, and Ghost, your point was spot on, that a tariff is a tax on the American people. That's what we're told. Meanwhile, and you and I talk about this all the time, going back to the late 1800s and the early 1900s, when tariffs drove our economy. Until the Creature from Jekyll Island, shameless plug to book club on Thursdays at 2 p.m., until the Federal Reserve was created, tariffs were the go along to get along. That's how we funded our government. Now we're told that tariffs are a tax on the people, and the companies that taxed us through rising prices have now sued, and they're going to get all that money back. They're going to get all that money back. Are the prices going to come down? Are they going to come back down? Are they going to go below what they were before the tariffs in order to make us whole? Fuck no. They don't give a shit about you. It is fantastic to watch the hypocrisy of the media who lied to us for a year and a half about tariffs, the courts who flat out ignored the law that Congress has passed. The absolute hypocrisy in the tariff battle is one of the most glorious things. And I hope ultimately, because you're right, this is a huge, bulwark against the golden age. And I'm hoping, that something gives on this, but
well, what needs to give is just people just need to pull their head out of the sand and stop. It's like stop perpetuating the system that we embarked on 10 years ago to shut down, and stop. We embarked on a mission not to restore the Republican Party to glory, but to break the Republican Party into a million pieces and scatter it into the wind, and then replace it with a system that actually is in the control of the American people. And we haven't completed that mission yet, and yet people are waving the flag and saying we've won. We haven't won yet. The mission is not over. We're only halfway there, and we got to finish it. And again, you can't get mad at the foreign countries for fighting Trump on the tariffs. You can't get mad at the corporations for fighting Trump on the tariffs. They're acting in their own best interest. Who you should be getting mad at are the people who are betraying you right now, the people with the little R's next to their name who refuse to work with President Trump and actually do the thing that's going to save America, which is implement the tariff system and codify it with legislation.
Let me finish, because there's a video that I was going to play a little bit later in the show, but it piggybacks perfectly on what you're saying right there. But let me just finish real quick here. It says he pressured a sitting Fed chair to force interest rates lower, with the DOJ going so far as to open a criminal investigation, breaking a half-century norm of central bank independence. The central bank is not independent in any way, shape, or form. The central bank is the power that runs this entire country. Again, shameless plug, Thursday, 2 p.m., Creature from Jekyll Island. But to say, that he's forcing him to lower interest rates by investigating him, I do think a lot of people would be curious to know why that Federal Reserve building is at $2.5 billion, or is it $5 billion now? It was started at $2.5 billion.
Meanwhile, it got inflated to $5 billion. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Trump's building an entire ballroom with an underground Department of Defense bunker for $400 million of private funding, by the way. Not that the Fed chair is government funded. It's not. But anyways, he also announced a 50-year mortgage and $2,000 tariff dividend checks on Truth Social. Again, I think those are more like ploys, right? That was more like baiting somebody, which, by the way, if you're buying a home And this was something a lot of people were upset about, that 50-year mortgage. But if you're buying a home and you're buying like your first starter home and you have an option of a 50-year mortgage where you know you're only going to be in that home for maybe 10 years or less, it's a pretty good option to bring down your monthly, payments until you're ready to sell that home. Now, if you're going to live in it forever, obviously it sucks. You're going to be paying huge interest rates over the course of a 50-year mortgage, 25 the first, half being primarily principal. But wasn't a horrible idea, just never went anywhere. But they threw it in here. And then, of course, he taunted his lifelong NATO allies as a whole, Ukraine, which, by the way, did you see that right there? He taunted lifelong allies, NATO as a whole, Ukraine, Canada, Denmark individually, among others. Is he implying, is Axios implying Ukraine is a NATO ally? Kind of felt like that.
Well, I mean, they're trying to plug him into the EU right now.
Yep.
So that's halfway there.
So again, I just wanted to get in that article because, there's to show not the hypocrisy, but the partisanship in Axios there, touting AOC and Elizabeth Warren as the next greatest thing and talking about how great they'd be as president, and that they're speaking at all these rallies, and they're invoking the Bernie Sanders, the Burn Bros are coming out in support for them and all that stuff. And then you go after Trump and it's just like completely destroying everything but that he says or does. But I want to play this because this clip was fantastic. This is a guy in Massachusetts at a city council hearing in Cape Cod, laying the foundation for the tax revolt. Massachusetts, baby. It's not lost on me that this is in Massachusetts.
And would you please tell us your name and what community you're from?
Yes, my name is Andrew DeRogers. I'm born and raised on Cape Cod. I appreciate that many people here have different points of view, and that's fine. Many of them are very well spoken. Many of them are polite. I'm not going to be. I am that taxpayer that several of the people who sat up here and spoke are talking about. What is on the line is very simple. It is a declaration of your allegiance either to the American citizen, the legal tax-paying American citizen, or the chosen community of foreign nationals who have been trafficked into this country for purposes of census data, for purposes of seats, for purposes of power, and for purposes of taxes. I am sick to effing death of paying for such bullshit. And I'm sick to death of being lectured about compassion, about patience and understanding. I have lived here all my life, and I have been required for all 40 years of that life to obey the law and follow the rules. There will be no Social Security check for me when I can't work anymore. I have never once received any of the benefits that have been spoken of here. Nobody is beating down my door to help me fix up my house so that it doesn't collapse on me or lower the cost of the electricity that I have to pay. I don't get health insurance. I can't afford it. But I am punished by this state for not being able to afford it so that people who are in this country illegally can benefit from it and go see the doctor whenever they want. And that is a fact, and I am sick of it. I am not an ununderstanding individual. I am not an uncompassionate individual. But my generosity has been abused, and I am sick of it. I am sick of being treated as an indentured servant to foreign nationals in my country and in my community. And I don't give a damn whose feelings that hurts. So you can either approve this measure and show legal, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens that they do not matter to you, or you can reject it and show them that you are listening. Those are the only two options. And for the record, I traveled abroad to a foreign nation, and you would not believe the amount of documentation I was required to have on me at all times and show whenever anybody asked. And you can bet your ass if I broke their laws, they would have nailed my ass to the wall. and I was very well behaved over there, and I was very respectful to the people because I was a guest in their country. I wasn't due anything. Thank you.
Fucking base, dude. God bless that. God bless that man. That guy is so much more qualified to be in office than anyone in the Republican Party. Anyone in the Republican Party. Yes. I would vote for that guy every day of the week. I don't even care what his qualifications are. I don't care what his background is. Just his attitude and his mindset, I think, is what we need. And the fact that MAGA has lost that. And I've had so many conversations in the past 3 weeks with normies in my real life. I've just been around. I've been traveling. I've been at weddings. I've been talking to people I haven't seen in years who we would all consider normies. And they are having this conversation right here and conversations like it. And I am not seeing those conversations happening anymore in the truth community. The conversations in the truth community are centered on whether or not we're trusting the plan hard enough, whether or not we are, complying with, the narrative that's being fed to us. These are the conversations we should be having again. We should be returning to where we were 10 years ago. And by the way, President Trump is incentivizing us to do that by turning heel and doing the thing that I described earlier. He's incentivizing all these foreign countries who we consider to be our allies, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, etc. He's incentivizing all of them to organize on their own and do their own thing and not rely on the United States to protect them, not rely on the United States to be there for them. He's incentivizing us to organize on our own and not rely on the Republican Party to babysit us and give us all the answers. That's not the future. The future is self-organization. We need to organize ourselves and come up with our own solutions. That's the future, not the Republican Party spoon-feeding us solutions and saying, don't worry, baby. We're going to take care of it for you. Just sit back, take another hit of the opiate and just let your eyes glaze over and enjoy the next episode of this horror show. That is not the answer. This guy is the answer.
So you look at this guy and he's wearing a neon green shirt, probably works in,
looks like he just walked off a job site.
He did. He looks like he just walked off a job site, but given the color of his shirt, maybe he's a garbage man. Maybe he's, construction, something where you need high visibility, blue collar job. His hair, is kind of ruffled up. He's got a beard that looks like it's, not the most well-kept thing. He's not, some pretty boy, city boy. You can see his pants are dirty. He looks like he just put in a 14-hour, 15-hour day doing hard labor, and his back is breaking because he's exactly right. There's others, there's people, we are being taxed to death. Now, to your point, Ghost, we have all become, in the Marine Corps, we had a thing, complacency kills, right? Yeah. That was always our thing. Before every patrol, we would go out, complacency kills. Just because we took over this AO, this small area, doesn't mean it's safe. Doesn't mean that we can let our guard down. That's what we're doing. I can remember during Biden, following the 2020 election, during the quote unquote Biden administration, my news feed was filled with citizens getting out there, involved in their local communities, getting involved in their city councils, involved in their state legislatures. There was a momentum behind it. And all of that is completely dead now. Now that we have a Republican majority in the House, a Republican majority in the Senate, President Trump in the White House, Supreme Court justices that are quote unquote conservatives, everybody's just like, okay, the problem's fixed. And nobody's actually, motivate. And to be fair, when I say nobody, I'm speaking very, broadly, only sit, steal, and absolutes, right? But the momentum behind that citizen-led initiative is completely gone. It's gone by the wayside. Guys like this guy here are they're relics at this point. Now, this is all going to drum up in 2028 or even in 2026 if the Democrats take back the House, because the partisanship, right? My team's not winning anymore, so I've got to actually get out there on the field and do some work and do some training and do some practice in order to be able to win the next, it's so fucking tiring, man. And people just put their head in the sand and just
let's diagnose the problem accurately because Tim Burchett said last week on John's show that the problem is people with election integrity is people being lazy. People aren't voting hard enough. That's what he literally said. Those are his exact words: is that you're just too lazy, and that's why we're losing elections. I don't think motivation is the problem. I think people are highly motivated. I think people are very angry, and people are rightfully outraged in what they're witnessing. I think the problem is focus. Like, where is our attention focused, and where are we putting our belief, so to speak? Like, what are we putting our faith in terms of like the solution? Okay. And I think the problem is that we are going back to the well that we've been going to for decades, for generations, and thinking that that poisoned well is going to give us clean water suddenly because there's a different label at the top of it, right? I'm talking about the Republican Party. Like, if we had taken over the Republican Party, Lindsey Graham wouldn't be in office anymore. You wouldn't have people in office who were stonewalling President Trump's agenda. You wouldn't have Republican leaders coming out on television on Fox News and telling us that we're silly for wanting a tariff program. You wouldn't have people coming out and saying we're not going to confirm President Trump's appointments. Like, that's happening. I mean, like hundreds and hundreds of appointments still have not been confirmed by a Republican-controlled legislature. That is demonstrative that the Republican Party does not serve MAGA. The Republican Party is not a populist party. The Republican Party is the same exact party it's always been. We've just been fooled into thinking that it's our party now because President Trump appears to be the kingmaker. He very much is. But that doesn't mean that we have election integrity. It doesn't mean that we have a system that actually is controlled by the people, for the people, we the people. Again, self-organizing. We need to be organized at the lowest level, and we need to be making demands of these people that we're just not making right now. We were making these demands a couple of years ago, and they were listening because they understood like the threat that President Trump and MAGA represented. A lot of that, though, has been thwarted because ostensibly it appears that we've won. I think you've also have a lot of people who have just kind of burnt out and are just no longer participating. I think they're maybe observing, but they're not participating anymore. You and I know several of those people in real life.
Yeah, I want to get into the next party, but to your point, the Republican Party, everybody just again gets complacent, and the reason. So the GOP, for those that don't know this, GOP stands for Grand Old Party. And that's exactly what it is. And you're not going to change it. We're not going to change it. Nothing is going to change it. Why? Because it is so ingrained in the system. It's not a party of you or me. It's not a party. Neither, and to be clear, neither is the Democrat Party. To be clear.
Yeah.
It's a party that is established and run by the government itself. And it is laundering funding through our taxpayers to keep its own viability, to keep itself alive. And it pretends that we have some involvement in that. And we don't. We don't. Because, and let's get into the next segment, because I've been saying, and I think you agree with me. I know you agree with me. President Trump is covertly waging war on the GOP. He's overtly doing it with the Democrats. He's covertly doing it with the GOP. We got a taste of this yesterday with the Ted Cruz podcast, where he was talking about this civil war that's going on within the GOP. Now it's going mainstream. Here's the Hill talking about it. Trump friction with GOP senators may imperil his agenda, senators say. Senate Republican sources say that President Trump's agenda for the rest of the year is in serious trouble, including a budget reconciliation package to fund immigration enforcement operations through 2029 after tempers erupted at a meeting with Todd Blanche last week. GOP senators say that Trump has no chance of getting taxpayer money to fund construction of the White House ballroom. Newsflash, he's not fucking asking for any of your money.
He doesn't want it. He never once said he wanted it. Yeah.
Right. He doesn't want your money, so piss off with that. And are warning that he will probably have to abandon or significantly reform his proposal to establish a $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund if he wants the stalled budget reconciliation package to have any chance of passing before the midterm election. Again, and I posted this again this morning. The weaponization bill has nothing to do with Congress. It's not a congressional appropriation. They have no authority over it. They have no say over it. It is Trump's private lawsuit in his personal capacity as Donald Trump and basically making an in-kind donation to the executive branch to pay back American citizens who have had the federal government weaponized against them over the last however many years. Congress is going fucking crazy over these two things. They're going crazy over the ballroom because they have no say in that.
Yep.
They
want to know what it is. They have no idea because he hasn't been required to submit plans to them because there's no taxpayer money involved. That's why they're freaking out. They want to know what it is. What is it that you're building in the basement there? We know you're building something important. What is it? They don't know.
Yep. GoFundMe, bro, in full swing with the ballroom. GoFundMe, bro, in full swing with the weaponization fund. And so what does Congress do? Congress turns around and says, well, if you're not going to let us in on this, if you're not going to take our taxpayer money and put it towards these two things and let Congress have say in over how this is distributed in terms of the weaponization fund, anti-weaponization fund, we're going to take our ball and go home. We're not going to fund your Department of Homeland Security. Thank God. Nobody wants the Department of Homeland Security, ladies and gentlemen. We want ICE. We want ICE. Integrate that into the military. Put military, claw back some of the military installations we have all across the country, claw a few of them back, rebuild them on the southern border, rebuild outposts on the northern border. Let's get that wall that Israel has. Remember the one that the paragliding go-karts are able to make it across? Let's get that wall that has these state-of-the-art AI sensors all going down it so we get alerted if there's an intrusion at our southern border. Nobody wants DHS. We want ICE and we want Border Patrol, but we don't want all the other crap that comes along with it. It notes here that Senator Tom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, John Cornyn, and Rand Paul are the four notable senators. But when you read on, it gets a little bit worse than that. It says, quote, the administration is creating issues everywhere by pissing off these senators. It's really a bad strategy, says a senior GOP aide. Senate Republicans feel like they've been under attack from Trump and the White House and are fed up with what they view as a lack of communication and are all too often a lack of respect from the executive branch. Say Senate GOP sources familiar with the dynamics of the GOP conference. Again, that's probably just the Hill putting out their own personal spin on this and hiding under an anonymous source. Maybe, maybe not. But it says even some of Trump's closest allies, including Senator Lindsey Graham, pushed back on the administration over Memorial Day weekend about a potential peace deal with Iran. Armed Service Committee Chair Roger Wicker warned on Saturday, quote, the rumored 60-day ceasefire with the belief that Iran will ever engage in good faith would be a disaster. One Republican senator who requested anonymity said fellow GOP senators are sick and tired of being put in tough political positions by Trump in an election year when the president's party is expected to face a serious political headwind. Quote, people are tired. I think they feel they're under siege and that the White House is very, very difficult to work with and not good to work with. I mean, below the level of the president, says the GOP senator. They treat people badly. You can do that for a short period of time, but over time, it's corrosive. Republican senators and aides warned that the budget reconciliation package, which would include nearly $70 billion in funding for immigration and customs and border patrol, may be dead unless the administration abandons the 1.8 weaponization fund or dramatically overhauls the proposal. He is waging war on the GOP, folks.
Interesting commentary. People can only take abuse for so long before it becomes corrosive. It's like that's literally the relationship that we have, the people have with the GOP. I mean, just politicians in general, right? I mean, they take our money, they promise us things, they do nothing to deliver, and then they blame us when things don't work out the way that we expected them to work out. That's just it in a nutshell. And yeah, I mean, it's maddening. And again, I think there's a little bit of a danger in validating the system by saying, oh yeah, like this is MAGA, like this current GOP that we have is a MAGA GOP, because what you're doing is you're communicating to the people who were fringe MAGA, you know, who jumped on board in 2024, who maybe weren't like in love with Trump before that. You're convincing them that, oh, okay, this is actually what MAGA is supposed to be. Well, this is not what I was expecting or signed up for. I'm going to go to the other team now. I'm going to go support the Democrats next time, and round and round and round we go. It's like versus the alternative is holding these people accountable, calling them out when they are proven liars, and exposing the fact that they are completely controlled by foreign lobbies and foreign money. And when you can prove that, just through like the funding they're receiving and then the narratives that they're supporting and the things that they're saying in public, which we can do here in a minute. That's when you can expose them as frauds, as traitors, as subversive liars. And when you can do that, you can then prove that the GOP is nothing more than just a facade for something much more insidious.
I'm here for it, man. I said last week, when Trump did his inaugural address in 2017 and said, for too long, a small group of people have controlled all the power in Washington, D.C., consolidated all the power. Today, we're giving it back to you, the Republican Party, right? That is not exactly what Trump said. He said, we're giving it back to you, the people. And there's no question in my mind that he's waging that war covertly. And again, if he said that publicly, he would get nothing done. He would not be able to do a damn thing. I mean, he's not able to do much now, which is why Axios is writing that article saying Trump just does what he wants. Yes, and that's what we want him to do at this point, because we have an illegitimate Congress. We have an illegitimate Senate. Do what you do. Let him cook. So,
yep.
If you want to add something, otherwise I'm going to land that there, and I'll hand it over to you in just a second here for geopolitics.
Yeah, let's just hit some of like the Republican stuff that you and I were talking about before the show. You said that you had that clip of that guy.
Yeah, let's hold on. We got to hit some sponsors real quick before we do that. So let's go ahead and hit a sponsor here. There we go. All right, guys, we hear a lot about crypto, but here is the part that most people miss. Crypto is created so you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you yourself are in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, then you felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today, everyone's heard of crypto, but getting started feels complicated. That's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all that complexity and makes it simple. Choose what you want, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, your debit card, or your bank and be up and running in just minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code, click the link in the description, and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. All right. And then let's also talk about our friends over at Native Path. This episode is brought to you by Native Path, Antarctic krill oil, omega-3s plus astaxanthin for hearts, joints, and memory. You may have seen the headlines about chemicals in conventional sunscreens, ingredients like oxybenzone that are now being pulled from the shelves over hormone concerns. Well, here's what most people don't know. There's a natural antioxidant called astaxanthin that is being called internal sunscreen. It works from the inside out. It helps neutralize free radicals at the cellular level. And the most concentrated natural source is Antarctic krill. Today's sponsor has it. If you've been taking fish oil for heart, joint, or memory support, here's something that you need to know. Research shows that fish oil is 50% less absorbable than krill oil, because fish oils omega-3s are in triglyceride form, while krill oils are in phospholipid form, which is the same format that your cell walls are made of. That means that krill oil gets into your cells immediately. In head-to-head studies, krill oil outperformed fish oil at improving cholesterol, reducing inflammation, and easing joint pain, often at lower doses. For this special offer, you can save up to 60% by heading to getkrill.com/badlands. That's getkrill.com/badlands and try it risk-free with a 365-day money-back guarantee. All right. Okay, so let's see, where do we want to go then? Ghost, do you want to jump into?
Yeah, that'll serve as a good transition to geopolitics if we go with the thing that you were talking to me about right before we went live.
All right, so we had again, one of the arguments that you see when you hear about the Democrats, and this was an old Bongino thing, like some Republicans are Democrats, but no Democrats are Republicans, and Republicans are bad. It's just they're a little bit better than Democrats. Like, you hear all that shit, right? That kind of rhetoric. And Sure, maybe it's true, but none of them are good. And the more and more you get your hopes up about something, the more and more you get let down. And there's been a lot of people that had their hopes up about this guy right here. And dude, just let this clip, let this clip speak for itself, man.
Oh my God.
Let this clip speak for itself.
The reality is hate sells, and these folks are just out here preaching this garbage, and we got to call it out. I'm critical of Israel a lot of times. I'm critical of Jared as he is me. Right. But it's just ridiculous. And now we've come to this place in society where both parties, somehow it's acceptable to call out Jews. They're less than 2% of our dadgum population. This is a card Hitler played. Oh, we're in trouble economically. Let's blame it on the Jews. Let's blame it on somebody. I'm sick of that crap. And we better stand up, and the Christian community better stand up, because I think this is something that goes at the heart of our beliefs. And I'm always quick to remind people that Jesus was a Jew. So what side are you going to be on? And I'm dead set against this kind of garbage, and we've got to call it out everywhere. And thank y'all for bringing this to people's attention.
Oh, most
I was on a national podcast yesterday, and the guy said to me, he said, but don't you think the Jews have too much control in Washington? And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about, dude? I'm on foreign affairs. I meet with foreign countries every day almost, the countries you can't even find on a dadgum map. And I rarely ever hear from any of my Jewish constituents.
Okay, so keeping in mind what Burchett just said right there, right? Keep in mind what Burchett said right there. Come on, they make up 2% of the population. There's nothing that's going to happen with them. They're only 2% of the population. Okay, this is John Podhoretz. I think that's how you say his name. Check out this clip. Now, this guy is a columnist, I think, for the New York Post, writes for conservative media. His father is considered one of the quote-unquote fathers of neoconism. I'm making that word up, neoconism. A father of
neoconservatism.
Neoconservatism. Yeah. I like neocon, though.
Yeah, they're neocons, but yeah, neoconservatism.
No, but neocon sounds more derogatory, and neocon
is. It should always be all of it's derogatory, but yes.
So listen to what he said. Burchett, they're just 2% of the population. They can't do anything.
I think it is a good thing if Massey and the people like him and others believe that if you cross the line into anti-Semitism, Jews are going to use the power that we have openly to go for you, because what other recourse is there?
Now, just to pause real quick here, and Ghost will 100% can back me up on this with examples. To them, everything is anti-Semitic. Everything is anti-Semitic. Period.
Mm-hmm.
If you criticize Bibi Netanyahu, anti-Semitism. If you say, hey guys, maybe you dropped a few too many bombs on Gaza, and these side-by-side pictures of how it looked 3 years ago versus today, those aren't all military targets. Anti-Semitism. Everything.
Are we just going to sit here and take it, beg for scraps, hope that nice people are nice to us? The Democratic Party is going explicitly anti-Semitic. We can see it happening. People are getting benefits, as Seth says, for being anti-Semites. That seems to be part of an appeal in primaries to the left and the party. We have to use what means there are at our disposal. And in my view, and I'm going to put it blank, that is Jewish money. There is an enormous amount of Jewish money in politics, by which I mean Jewish donors, wildly disproportionate, not only charitably, but politically. And when I say charitably, I mean nobody really knows the numbers. Jews make up 2% of the population. According to some studies, Jews make up 20% of the charitable contributions made in the United States annually. That is a tenfold. Think about that. Think about the disproportion of that. And in politics, it's pretty close also. And if that money isn't used, why do people give money? Because they want to influence elections to get people elected who reflect their views. Well, this is an existential issue for Jews. And the Jews who explicitly give money because they want to make it clear to anti-Semitic candidates that they are going to have to go through a buzzsaw, and that they are not going to simply waltz in and be If they're treated with kid gloves by the New York Times, we are double time going to do what we can to expose who they are, to find out what we can find out about them that will harm them, and that we will do what we can to prevent them from taking office. What other choice does American Jewry have?
They're just 2%, dadgummit. They're just 2%, dadgummit. They can't do a damn thing. That guy literally said
the country boy shtick is pretty awful. It's pretty cringe. I mean, it's. I just came from the country. My in-laws are from the country. They speak with a deep draw, and that guy is about as fake country as I've ever heard. So let's just prove him wrong. This is from literally 7 days ago. Let me add this to the stage. From Politico. I think we even talked about this last week. Bipartisan Senate duo unveils sweeping anti-Semitism bill. So this is a hate speech bill introduced at the federal level, right? That is sponsored by the Republican Party. You can bet your last dollar that guy, Tim Burchett's going to be voting yes on this, obviously, based on the language that he just put out there. Here is Bezalel Smotrich and Gideon Sa'ar. That would be Gideon Sa'ar is the foreign minister of the Israeli government. Smotrich is the finance minister of the Israeli government. This is from December 6th, so 6 months ago, approving a $750 million campaign to spend money on influencers online to influence American politics. This is the Israeli government approving money in their national budget to influence American politics using influencers online. $750 million. Okay. Here is, and then here's just more of that. 730 million is what's quoted here, but I've seen it both ways. 750 million. Yeah. And just to like cut it off at the knees, because they're going to say, oh, well, y'all are just being anti-Semitic. Here is my post from 3 years ago. This is from 2023. Where I talked about it on this show. I was commenting on the fact that the Virginia Republican Party was the first place to pass one of these hate speech laws. That was Glenn Youngkin signing it in. And it says, quote, Virginia was the first state in the nation to convene a commission to combat anti-Semitism. And I said, does everybody see how this will be used to outlaw criticism of the government of Israel? Does everybody see how once the precedent is set, it will likely be used to justify future measures to outlaw criticism of the U.S. government? It's all connected. Pay attention. So yeah, first they'll say that you can't criticize Israel because that's anti-Semitic. Then they'll say you can't criticize Jewish politicians because that's anti-Semitic. That means you want to Holocaust them. That's what they're going to say. And then they're just going to expand that to all politicians. They're going to say, well, it's not fair to single out the Jewish politicians. We're just going to say if you criticize any politician, that's like hate speech and you're basically inciting violence against the politician. And so we should just outlaw all criticism of politicians and government in general. That's how it's going to happen. It's the Republican Party ripping apart the Bill of Rights and certain segments of MAGA waving the pom-poms and cheerleading, just like we did 25 years ago when they passed the Patriot Act. And we were like waving the pom-poms, go get the Muslims, go get the Muslims. This will never be used against us. And then the Biden administration came in and literally used the Patriot Act against us.
Yep.
It's like, it's so obvious, it hurts how obvious it is. When 3 years in advance, I can look down look down the path and say, here's what's coming, guys. It's coming. It's coming. And the Republicans are going to be the ones that are going to do it. And here we are. The Republicans are the ones doing it. And by the way, the super based and red pilled guy, Tim Burchett, who everybody loves, is the one slapping you in the face and telling you to accept it and that you're an anti-Semite if you don't. This isn't about Jews or anti-Semitism, although it kind of is, because that guy just said, it's Jewish money that's pushing this stuff. Ultimately, this is about the First Amendment. This is about dismantling the First Amendment so you don't have a First Amendment anymore, because then they can implement total control over society. That's what this is ultimately about. And the Republicans are a key part of that plan. So you can either go along with the plan and watch your country be taken from you, or you can stop, turn around, and call it out and ask the Republican Party, why are you going along with this, dude? But people don't want to do that because they think by doing that, they're somehow undermining President Trump. They're like undermining Trump by doing this. Do you think Donald Trump actually wants this to happen? Do you think he's pro anti-First Amendment? Or do you think he's exposing this and incentivizing us to stand up against it. That's what we should be doing right now. So with that, on that note, let's go to geopolitics, because this is going to play right into that. So here, here's the Badlands news brief from yesterday. And one of the big stories is Trump held a phone call with the Muslim leaders. Everybody was saying over the weekend, oh, we're about to start a war with Iran. Thank God. Thank God. We're all like, thank God that this war with Iran is going to restart. Oh, it's been too long. And then Trump, of course, held a phone call with all the Muslim leaders, MBS being the leader of that group, and said, you know what, after talking to them, I think we're actually not going to start a war with Iran. And I think we're actually probably going to be able to negotiate a deal. And here's what Trump put out. This is from the White House. He says, I'm in the Oval Office at the White House, where we just had a very good call with President Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud of Saudi Arabia, MBZ of the UAE, Tamim of Qatar, Al-Dularan bin Jassim, Al Thani of Qatar, another guy from Qatar, the field marshal from Pakistan, Erdogan from Turkey, the guy Sisi from Egypt, King Hamad from Bahrain, King Abdullah from Jordan. You get the point. And he says all things related to a memorandum of understanding pertaining to peace. An agreement has been largely negotiated, subject to finalization between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran and the various other countries as listed. Separately, I had a call with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, which likewise went very well. Final aspects and details of the deal are currently being discussed and will be announced shortly. In addition to other elements of the agreement, the Strait of Hormuz will be open. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. Notice how he said the negotiation is between the USA and Iran, but also these other Muslim countries. Yes. Separately, we're talking to Israel. They're not a part of this. Yep. They're not a part of this because we know where they stand on this. We know they're not going to be on board with this. And then here's what Marco Rubio said when he was asked about it on Sunday.
There is a hit.
All right.
Anything new on Iran?
We're still a work in progress. As I said, we thought we might have some news last night. Maybe today. I wouldn't read too much into it. It takes a little while to hear back. So we have what I think is a pretty solid thing on the table in terms of their ability to open up the straits, get the straits open, enter into a very real, significant, time-limited negotiation on the nuclear matters. And hopefully we can pull it off. It has a lot of support in the Gulf. It has a lot of support globally. Every country that we've walked through it understands it's not just very reasonable, but it's the right thing for the world to get done. As the president said, he's not in a hurry. He's not going to make a bad deal. I mean, the president's not going to make a bad agreement. So let's see what happens. We're going to give diplomacy every chance to succeed before we explore the alternatives.
What's the holdup right now? Is there something that needs to be done?
It's just a response. I mean, when you get down to some of these things, you got to hear back, and it takes the Iranian system a little while longer to get back. Look, the president's not going to make a bad deal. He's just not. This issue, no one has done more, and no one has been more serious about the threat of a nuclear Iran than President Trump has been. And so I'm very confident, and we should all be very confident that we're either going to have a good agreement or we're going to have to deal with it another way. We'd prefer to have a good agreement.
What about Lebanon? Is Lebanon going to be part of a deal?
Well, Lebanon, we're working on separately. With Lebanon, we are engaged now. We have a 45-day ceasefire. We've had weekly meetings now and ongoing daily engagements between the government of Lebanon and Israel. The problem is not Lebanon and Israel. The problem is Hezbollah. Just last night, Hezbollah put out a statement calling for the overthrow of the Lebanese government. And it just reminds you who you're dealing with here. By the way, an Iranian proxy, 100% Iranian proxy. And as long as Lebanon exists with armaments, as long as an armed Hezbollah exists, it's going to be hard to achieve peace in Lebanon because they're victimizing the people of Lebanon. They're not just attacking Israel. They are victimizing the people of Lebanon who are paying a tremendous price because of Hezbollah. And so but we're working that track with the Lebanese government and the Israeli government, and we've made some good progress there. An extended ceasefire, a path forward. We're going to continue to work on that. Hezbollah is a terrorist group. What can I tell you?
Well, would it be to understand that Israel wouldn't strike Lebanon as part of the?
Well, Israel always has a right to protect itself. Every country in the world does. And so if Hezbollah is going to launch missiles or launches missiles at them, Israel has every right to respond to that or to prevent that from happening. That's always been understood. It's being understood during the ceasefire, and now in Lebanon, and it'll be understood beyond that.
What did you make of the question?
All right, so Rubio is really communicating two messages there. He's communicating the Trump message, which was the first half of that video, and then the second half of the video, he is communicating his handler's message, the people who have long backed him since he entered office many years ago. That would be the Israeli lobby. So he is communicating first, we're going to have peace in the Middle East. Everybody's on board with it. Not just the Muslims in the Middle East are on board with it. The entire world's on board with it. Russia, China, India, all of them. They're all on board with it. Everyone thinks this has to happen. And then he comes in behind, he says, but with Lebanon, yeah, Israel has a right to defend itself. And if they want to continue a war with Lebanon, well, they're going to do that. Okay. So here is, and then Trump, of course, put out this post, a screenshot of this one account saying, quoting Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, quote, "We are ready to assure the world that we are not seeking nuclear weapons. We are not seeking instability in the region." Now, this is a break from how Trump has treated these negotiations in the past, because normally what he does is he comes out and he says, we are, Iran really wants to make a peace deal. Like they really want to. And then when we get really, really close to making a peace deal, Trump comes out and says, Iran's playing hardball. They're not following through. They're not doing what we need them to do. Looks like we're not getting a deal. Sorry, 2 more weeks of winter. And then the groundhog goes back into his hole and we wait until a week or two later when Trump says, oh, here comes another peace deal, right? Now, Trump is doing this, in my opinion, he's like allowing this thing to just remain in limbo and unresolved, because by doing so, I think he is baiting all of these liars to come out and expose himself for what they really are. And let's go through who some of these people are. I mean, obviously you have Mark Levin. Back-to-back posts. First, he suddenly posts about Saudi Arabia being behind 9/11, which is yes, some people in Saudi Arabia were involved in 9/11, but so was the CIA, so was Mossad, so were other actors in our own government that were involved in this, the Bush administration, of course. And the people, by the way, in Saudi Arabia who were involved have already been arrested and strung up by their toes, literally, in some cases, and tortured. Those people have already been addressed. They've already been, it's the only country, by the way, who's actually exacted justice on behalf of the victims of 9/11 and the United States, is Saudi Arabia. And then he immediately posts after that, big problem, how about we fix this? Citing an article from the Jerusalem Post talking about the deal that Trump and Rubio were talking about right there, saying, ooh, this deal sounds like a big problem. How about we fix this? We can't have this deal. He then posts this video of these two people talking, these podcasters, and they're talking about the fact that Trump talks to these Muslim leaders every single day, and these people seem to be having influence on how Trump's handling Iran, and that's a big problem. The foreign influence on Trump and why and how they're talking Trump out of a bigger war with Iran. And Mark Levin says, great question, great interview. And the question, of course, is why are we allowing these Muslim leaders to have this foreign influence on President Trump? Again, more subversion against President Trump and his agenda. And then here's Ted Cruz. I am deeply concerned about what we are hearing about an Iran deal being pushed by some voices in the administration. And he goes on and on to talk about how bad of an idea this is and how President Trump is not making the right move. He says the details are still coming out, and I pray the early reports are wrong, but the fact that Biden's Rob Malley is praising the deal is not encouraging. President Trump believes in peace through strength, et cetera, et cetera. And so I then play the clip of Robert Malley. This is the Biden envoy to Iran, and what he actually said. And one thing I've noticed in the past 6 months is all of these career liars in the uniparty, in the establishment, from both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, because it's all one thing. They've actually been incentivized to come out and tell the truth, because in my opinion, Donald Trump has taken on the Hollywood Hulk Hogan heel role, right? Where he has made it all so cartoonish that by telling the truth, they're actually undermining in their view, President Trump and what he appears to be trying to do. And so let's listen to what he says here.
Rob, one big if in all of this is Israel, and the reason Iran's demand that the more war in Lebanon, no more war in Gaza, no more war in Yemen, seems to be, at least from the initial responses in Israel, to reserve the right to operate. And it seems that Iran wants to incorporate them into some kind of comprehensive deal going forward. Is that like imagine a scenario in which Israel agrees not on the Iran nuclear deal, but on no attacks to Lebanon?
They're going to wiggle out of it, and I don't know. I don't know what Iran could do about it. Is that Iran they reserve the right to respond to any threat And then they'll define the threat as, they've discovered an arms cache of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Or Hezbollah were meeting. Maybe they're
What's up?
You're coming in really broken. I don't know if it's just on my end.
I think it's this video. I think it's this video just isn't playing well.
Can you send the link in the private chat and let me pull it up to see, because you can't really make what he's saying because it keeps like cutting out and then coming back.
Let me see if I can just pull. I can probably just pull it up right here. This is probably going to be better. 1 second.
Well, the earlier video you played did the same thing, but the audio didn't cut. So if you want, just send it in the private chat and I'll.
Well, so here's the video right here. Let me see if this works.
If in all of this is Israel, and the reason why I bring that up is because not only have they made their opposition to a deal with Iran clear to this administration, they've also made clear that Iran's demand that the entire region be included in a deal, which means no more war in Lebanon, no more war in Gaza, no more war in Yemen, seems to be, at least from the initial responses in Israel, a non-starter. Israel says it will continue to reserve the right to operate in all of those countries and territories. And it seems that Iran wants to incorporate them into some kind of comprehensive deal going forward. Is that likely to happen? Is there a scenario? Can you imagine a scenario in which Israel agrees not on the Iran nuclear deal, but on no attacks to Lebanon, no attacks to Gaza, no attacks on Yemen?
No. And I think the way they're going to wiggle out of it, and I don't know what Iran could do about it, is that Iran will say they reserve the right to respond to any threat. And then they'll define the threat as, they've discovered an arms cache of Hezbollah in Lebanon, or leaders of Hezbollah who are meeting. Maybe they're plotting against Israel. So they will choose any pretext, I suspect, to continue to attack Lebanon and Hezbollah if they wish to. And they will say that that's consistent with the deal. There probably will be a side agreement between the U.S. and Israel. They would say exactly what I just said and that you intimated, that Israel reserves the right to take action in the face of any threat, and it will reserve the right to define.
Okay, so to clarify what Ted Cruz actually said, because he wasn't really presenting the full story, what Robert Malley and the others are all saying is they're praising Trump for trying to make peace with Iran, but what they're throwing in the caveat, which is absolutely accurate, that Israel is not going to comply with whatever Trump negotiates with Iran. That Israel is going to continue to wage war against Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Iran, even with or without President Trump. And so the incentive structure, in my opinion, from these people who don't like Trump is that they're telling the truth because they think it makes Trump look weak. And in some ways, they're right, that Trump can't control Israel. He can't control Netanyahu, despite claiming that he does. And so they're going to tell the truth that, hey, watch what's going to happen. Trump's going to negotiate this deal with Iran, and then Israel is just going to keep on going without Trump, and Trump's going to be forced to back Israel in a war against Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Iran. So going back to the news brief, here's Lindsey Graham, and now Lindsey Graham is calling out all the Muslims, all the Arabs, and saying, and he's praising Trump because Trump reportedly came out and said, hey, if we do negotiate this deal with Iran, my expectation is that all of y'all are going to join the Abraham Accords, right? Like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, y'all are, and Iran, like y'all are going to join the Abraham Accords, which basically means you're going to surrender your right to defend yourself if Israel wakes up one morning and decides to fire a missile at you. That's what the Abraham Accords effectively says. And again, I think this is the heel roll that he's doing. He's kind of exposing something here. Here's the reality of what was being reported by Barack Ravid. This is from 2 days ago, where he says, President Trump told leaders of Arab and Muslim countries during a Saturday conference call that if a deal to end the Iran war is achieved, he wants their nations to join the Abraham Accords and sign peace agreements with Israel. He then follows it up by saying the leaders, especially those of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Pakistan, who don't have formal diplomatic relations with Israel, were surprised by Trump's request. Quote, there was silence on the line, and Trump joked and asked if they were still there, one of the U.S. officials said. I think, again, Barack Ravid has proven that he relays exactly what he's told by the White House. I think whether or not he's relaying reality, I think, is based on whether or not they're telling him the truth, but he relays whatever the White House tells him. I think they're telling the truth when that's what happened, is that they were all like, it was just crickets, like, no, we don't want to join the Abraham Accords anymore because, Israel is openly talking about waging war against all of us, and not, annexing Palestine and annexing Lebanon, etc. We have no interest in making peace with Israel. And that's, of course, what is now coming out. Like, that's becoming mainstream. This is from a few days ago. This is now becoming like the mainstream discussion and talking point. And so now Trump has come out and said, here's from today's news brief. He also came out and slapped down all of his critics and said that nobody knows what's actually in the deal. Everyone needs to sit down and shut up and let me cook, basically, is what he said. And he was referring, I think, to Levin and Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and all those Zionists. But he said, he posted last night, the enriched uranium nuclear dust will either be immediately turned over to the United States to be brought home and destroyed, or preferably in conjunction and coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran, destroyed in place or at another acceptable location with the Atomic Energy Commission or its equivalent being witness to this process and event. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So now he's saying, hey, the nuclear pixie dust that everyone's obsessing over, we're just going to let Iran destroy that on their own, and it's just going to be kind of a trust me bro situation, and we're just going to make peace with Iran, and they're going to be our ally now. That's basically what's happening right now. You're watching this happen in real time, very slowly, but in real time. It's called the Venezuela model. It's exactly what we did in Venezuela, where nothing changed in Venezuela. We got rid of Maduro, right? We plucked him out of the leadership. Everything else remained in place, and now Venezuela is our greatest ally, according to Trump. Same thing's going to happen with Iran. Hate to tell y'all, the people who really want to see us go to war with Iran, I hate to tell y'all, but Trump's about to call Iran our greatest ally, but not so fast, because now we have Israel coming in with what they call Operation Arrows of Fury. So they just launched a new campaign against Lebanon as this deal is being finalized, and a new bombing campaign in southern Lebanon. They're now pushing north of the Litani River, which they were places they haven't been before. And let's see, right here, IDF expands ground operations north of security zone in Lebanon. So now they're moving beyond the territory that they've controlled now for a few months. And they're pushing further north towards Beirut. They want to take all of Lebanon and make it part of Israel. That's their plan. That's their goal. They're doing this, of course, to subvert President Trump's attempts to negotiate peace with Iran. Here is Itamar Ben-Gvir, National Security Minister, openly saying to Lebanon, the IDF should just cut electricity to Lebanon, which is, of course, is a war crime. You can't just cut off electricity to a whole nation because you're at war with one of their proxies. Even at war with their military, you can't cut off electricity to the civilian population. That is a war crime. But he's calling for it openly. And him and Smotrich are promising we're going to bomb the shit out of Lebanon. Smotrich said, for every drone that Lebanon or Hezbollah sends into Israel, we will blow up 10 buildings in Lebanon. That's the promise. So you're watching this happen in very slow motion in real time. But what I think, as I've been saying for months now, you're going to see President Trump take the off ramp. He's going to negotiate peace with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is going to reopen. I think a new security arrangement, a new alliance is going to form, not the Abraham Accords, but something akin to it. It's going to be organized by Saudi Arabia. It's going to include all the countries in the Middle East outside of Israel. And basically, it's going to be like NATO. The way NATO treats Russia, it's going to be the Muslim countries treating Israel. Like Israel, if you bomb any country in the Middle East, all of us, with the backing of Russia and China, are going to come after you. You're going to fight all of us. If you bomb Iran, we're coming after you. If you bomb Lebanon, we're coming after you. If you bomb Gaza, we're coming after you. That's what I think we're going to see happen. It's not going to be the Abraham Accords, but it's going to be what the Abraham Accords, I think, was always kind of meant to be, which is an alliance against Israel by the world. And yeah, I like, as Robert Malley said, I think he's 100% right, that Israel is going to basically hold the middle finger up to Trump and just plow forward with the war with Lebanon and Iran while we make peace with Iran, and try to stabilize the situation.
Did you see what Mark Levin said about Netanyahu? And this aligns with the Greater Israel Project and what you've been saying for a while, that Netanyahu is facing, like,
yeah, the one where he's basically going to get thrown out.
Yeah, here, check this one out.
What's happening now is your left-wing media, and there's a lot of it in Israel, and our left-wing media, your left-wing media, along with the Bennett types, are saying this government can't finish the job. This government won't finish the job. Well, that government, led by Likud and your prime minister, is brought to the point where Iran is on the brink. It's on the brink. But Netanyahu has to navigate a lot of waters, including dealing with us, dealing with Europe, dealing with the Arab countries, dealing with the Quislings in your country who want to be prime minister. And on top of that, fighting all these fronts in his war. I don't know who else could do anything like this, quite frankly. So my concern is that depending on my country responds, we could have a situation where the regime in Iran survives, Hezbollah survives, Hamas survives, and the weakest elements in your politics take over the government by claiming to be the strongest elements in your government. I'm worried about that a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's funny is, like, again, this is what I've been prognosticating for a while now, that Netanyahu's back's up against the wall. His regime's back's up against the wall. They know with this election looming in October that their time is limited. Their time is short. They don't have time to play politics anymore. They don't have time to play the game where they delay and they wait 3 months or they wait 6 months to continue the war. They got to start the war has got to happen right now because greater Israel is at stake. And these other people who want to replace Netanyahu, Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett, who you just saw on screen, those are the guys that Mark Levin is referring to there. They also want war with Iran, but they don't care about greater Israel. Greater Israel is not a priority for them. They want a war with Iran, I think, because they know that it's good for creating the Israeli superpower that they're all interested in making. But they want Netanyahu out, and they also want these radicals out because they understand the optics of all this is terrible. They understand that the radicals in Netanyahu's government are turning the world against them. And so they need to lower the temperature in the room. A war with Iran's great, but right now the world is organizing against us, and we need to back out of this before we become the geopolitical pariah. That's going to create a dynamic in and of itself where you have accelerationism inside of Israel. And that's what's going to be the catalyst that drives them deeper into war as we head for the exit. They have no choice. They have to keep going. They can't stop. If Netanyahu backs down now, his government will probably dissolve even before October. We won't get an election, I think, until October anyway, but even if his government dissolves now, but just because of the time it takes to organize it. But that's the position that he's in. If his government collapses, they can't continue to, make decisions and push for the war. So it's do or die. Like, they have to keep going. And that's the dynamic that I think is really that this is the incentive structure that Trump has completely created through his like Hulk Hogan, like WrestleMania, like whole soap opera he's put together, is that the world is now incentivized to organize on its own. It doesn't need the United States. That's a good thing. That's the multipolar world. We don't want our military in 750 bases around the world. That's bad for us. We also don't want Israel controlling our politics. That's all being pushed up to the surface right now. It's undeniably the dynamic that we're in. And then meanwhile, they are basically incentivized to just plow forward. And then we didn't even talk about Tulsi. I mean, that was kind of a gut punch. Thoughts and prayers to her husband. Yeah. But I mean, she's like the one person in the administration that I think is actually serious about draining the swamp. There's a few others that I think are real about it, but we'll see what happens with her. She's got a month left in office, so I hope she just breaks all their toys on the way out.
Well, she already made the announcement that she may be releasing the FISA court opinion that would show, the extent to which FISA, because that's still up in the air in Congress, right? And you had Una Panuna come out and say, and I think Mike Davis as well, or was it Mike Lee? One of the two came out, when the whole Save America Act debate was going on, and you had like the Una Panunas that were like, oh, well, take the SAVE Act and put it in with the FISA bill because they're going to pass the FISA bill. They have to pass that. And then you had the other side that was like, no, you don't need to put this in with the FISA. Put it in a reconciliation bill, and then it just needs a simple majority. And we were looking at this like, why do you have to take an 87, 83% yes, approved a bill that has the overwhelming support of the American people? Why do you have to put it into a FISA bill that is going to violate our Fourth Amendment rights, take away, unlawful search and seizure, unwarranted searches. Like, why do you have to compromise on that? Was our big argument back then. And now as Tulsi's on her way out, potentially, we have the release of this court opinion, which is supposed to throw a whole bunch of gasoline on the Section 702 fight as it's going before Congress for a vote. And keep in mind, Trump is covertly waging war on the GOP. And so throwing that gasoline on a fire for a bill that they really, really, really want, but is detrimental to Americans' privacy, individual sovereignty, is a very interesting parting gift.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of maintain the take that I have had for a long time, which is, like you said before, Trump is waging war against the GOP. He's destroying the GOP brand the same way Biden destroyed the Democrat brand during his term. And once I got over like the initial shock of that we actually are at war, narratively at war with Iran, whichever it is, my assessment of it after watching it for a few days, weeks, was that Trump is actually waging war against Israel using Iran as a proxy, whether or not they even are that read in on it. And that appears to be the case. I think that what you're seeing Israel being brought to its knees. And the discussion right now is that they're about to collapse. Like the IDF is collapsing. The economy is collapsing. All of the highly educated, high-tech workers are leaving Israel out of fear for being drafted into the IDF, out of fear of their homes being blown up by Hezbollah. And because their economy is completely dependent on high-tech and software, that's really bad for them. They need the really, really highly educated people who work in tech and software, and they're all leaving Israel. So, it's like an Ouroboros self-defeating prophecy, where as they push forward for greater Israel, the whole thing bottoms out from underneath them because they're just stretching themselves too thin too quickly.
Yep. All right. Well, if that's all you got for geopolitics for today, that's going to wrap up the show.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of other things to discuss, but I feel like we hit like the big major points. I'll cover more of it this afternoon on my show, Geopolitics with Ghost. We got the Ebola thing happening with DRC. We got the terrorism thing happening in West Africa. Those are all connected to Ukraine and Israel as well. We also have this one, which is this is worth mentioning. Israel slamming Zelensky over the tribute to the Nazi collaborator Andrei Milnik. Andrei Milnik and Stepan Bandera were partners who created the OUN in 1929. That was the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalism. And they were basically it was like a militant terrorist organization operating out of West Ukraine. And they were immediately partnered with the Nazis and were like working for the Nazis. And then eventually they had a falling out with the Nazis. They split up. Bandera became a huge figure, like hero in Ukrainian lore, as did Milnik. And so Bandera has the Banderites. They have statues all over the place in Ukraine. And now this guy, Milnik, is getting his own state on. He was reburied with state honors over the weekend. And so Israel came out and said, we regret the decision to hold an official state burial ceremony for OUN leader Andrei Milnik, who collaborated with the Nazis. There is no place for ignoring historical truth in the memory of the victims murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. So I gave a whole history of this in the Badlands news brief this morning, if you want to go read that. But the TLDR is that you had these Austro-Hungarian soldiers. They were formerly in the Austro-Hungarian Empire before the collapse of that empire post World War I. They then go on to create this militant group in Western Ukraine. So these guys are like Germanic heritage, ethnicity. You then have the Jewish Bolsheviks in Eastern Ukraine who come out and of the pale of Jewish settlement, and they go into Moscow and butcher the Russian royal family, and the rest is history, and they create the Soviet Union. Those two groups were not allies per se, but they did share a common thread, and their common thread was their hatred of Russia. They both blamed Russia for all of their problems and the subjugation of their people, despite being from different ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, etc. Because Ukraine is the most organically diverse country, one of the most diverse countries in the world, along with Russia. And so I think that common hatred of Russia is what ultimately merges those two groups together, the Banderites and the Bolsheviks. And that's how you get, in the modern sense, the Azov Battalion, a militia of Jewish Nazis, which is what the Azov Battalion is. People who call themselves Hebrew Banderites. That's literally what Igor Kolomoisky had on T-shirts during the Maidan coup in 2014. Hebrew Banderites, which doesn't make any sense because Stepan Bandera worked with the Nazis to conduct pogroms against the Jews. But again, a common hatred of the Russians, I think, is what brought their children together. And you have this really, really weird hypocrisy that's emerged in Ukraine. I also think, by the way, that there are thousands of Jewish Zionists in the Third Reich that we don't know about. That is not mainstream history. But I do think that Jewish Zionists were absolutely like a big part of the Third Reich, and why you had this the transfer agreement in 1933, which moved millions of Jews from Central and Eastern Europe to Palestine under the organization of Adolf Hitler. So again, this is like a weird caveat in history that is just completely erased from our memory. But it does explain a lot of what's happening in Ukraine. And now you have yet another divide happening between Israel and Ukraine, which shares a common ancestry, a common heritage, and a common religion. So we'll see what happens, but it's very interesting that you're getting all of this division inside of Israel, between Israel and Ukraine, between the Uniparty, between EU, NATO, all of it, right as the Sovereign Alliance seems to be emerging and kind of finding its footing and being incentivized to organize on their own outside of the U.S., which is how we're going to get a multipolar world.
All right, let's land that there. And you got geopolitics with Ghost this afternoon.
Yep, 2:00. 2:00. We'll run through all the stories we didn't get to today on this show. There's plenty to discuss. So.
All right, guys, if you have not done so yet, smash that thumbs up. A little over 3,600 people watching. And let's jump in. We got a couple rants here. I think we read Emerald Dragons. Harold Patriot is now a monthly supporter. Thank you. Rebelnator, perhaps somebody could explain MAGA to me. Make America great again. Like when exactly?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, it's not. Well, I mean, it's not doing, but yeah, make America great again. But it's like, yeah, let's not wait to do that. Let's just do it now. Like, let's just be persistent and make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable and holding the people that we think are our leaders accountable as well, because we can't just assume that everyone is operating from the same motive that we are. And I'm talking about the television characters. So I would agree with that like make America great again. Win now. Like, and we shouldn't wait 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 3 years from now. Let's not wait till 2028 when we have another election. Let's do it now. So I would agree with that. I also saw Harold Patriot. Is that became a subscriber? Is that Kash Patel's sock account?
That's his sock here for Badlands. Yeah. Guys, also don't forget badlandsmedia.tv/events. June 25th through the 28th. We'll be heading back to Deadwood, South Dakota for the 12th stop of the Great American Restoration Tour. Whether you're attending in person or virtually, a GART veteran or a GART virgin, there's something there for everyone. Merch packages are now also available for both in-person and virtual ticket holders. Get your GART tickets today at badlandsmedia.tv/events. And GART Deadwood is always a good one. It's always a good one. Trump started the 250th, the what was it, like Project 250? What was it? Freedom 250? The party started on Memorial Day. So Saturday, Ghost, when everybody was dooming out over, or not dooming out, to be honest with you, they were getting really excited because, most of the neocons in our government.
Come on, dude. He literally touches himself to pictures of nuclear warheads.
They literally get excited over the prospect of war. And Saturday morning on my show, I said, Trump's going to sign a peace deal. Watch. This isn't going to be a war. This isn't going to be an escalation, but he's not going to his son's wedding. He's going back to the White House to nuke Iran and to bomb Iran. And I said, dude, if he was going to bomb Iran, he'd go to Mar-a-Lago, not the White House. He's never gone to the White House for a military strike. He's always gone to Mar-a-Lago. And he made it a point to say, I'm going back to the White House. And I knew right away that it was going to be a peace proposal.
Yeah, well, Trump's also always said that he's never going to broadcast a military operation right before he does it. Like he used to make fun of Obama for doing that, like holding a press conference, being like, "Hey, we're gonna do this military operation next week. Like everyone get ready." And then Trump's like, "Why would you telegraph that to the enemy right before you do it? Like just do it and then hold a press conference and explain why you did it." So whenever we get this media gin up of like, "Oop, Monday morning we're gonna bomb Iran." It's like you kind of know that that's not real, that that's basically the media trying to pressure Trump into doing something that he otherwise isn't planning on doing.
Well, and CBS also came out and said, hey, we've got sources in the White House that are saying that a military strike is imminent and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? To be honest with you, Trump very well could have led that on. He could have even gone as far as telling them, go to your media contacts and say a strike is imminent. Why? Because Iran's going to see that reported and be like, oh, we better take this proposal seriously. It's a bargaining chip. That's all it is. That's all it is. I don't think Trump was ever thinking about like a strike that particular weekend. I've always said the deal is this war wraps up before July 4th, because that would be the optics. That would be horrible optics to have our 250th anniversary birthday and be at war with Iran. And so it's coming to an end, I think. All right, Ghost. As always, brother, thanks, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man. Good to see you.
All right, guys, smash that thumbs up on your way out. And again, stay tuned. You got geopolitics coming up here. You got Daily Herald at 1 p.m. And we'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.